a bully pushing me down to fall on the ground is a good analogy for how reactive power comes out of the valence shells of the atoms of, let's say, copper, holding the copper together to make a copper wire, or the rubber in the insulator around the wire, or in the middle of the sandwich of a capacitor. The bully will take all the credit for my having fallen, yet I'm the one doing the falling. I'm the one with the mass and the one who will experience the fall when the ground meets up with my face. And yet the bully takes the credit. Why? Because, well, why not? Ego. But yet all he did was push me and catch me off guard and trip me so that it would be easy to make me fall. Yet I'm the one doing the falling. This is the situation with a flashlight in which we give the battery the credit for lighting the light bulb, yet it's the wire and the bulb, the tungsten filament in the bulb and whatnot. It's the circuit that actually is doing the lighting of the light bulb in the flashlight. The battery doesn't have a whole lot to do with it, except we make the circuit so stupid that it has no choice but to be a tug-of-war of sorts, in which the battery wins. It pushes the wire and the incandescent, or the tungsten wire in the incandescent bulb, with such force that they have no choice but to go along with the push and light up the bulb and have, the current go through the wire and whatnot. Yet, that's the dumb way to do things. The smart way to do things is to design the circuit with so much intelligence that it does not require a battery of full voltage to bring about the full lighting of the bulb. Why do that? Why spend $100 to yield less than 100, since we know the flashlight circuit is less than 100% efficient? Why spend $100 to get $80 out of it? Well, I'm sure it's less than $80, when we can spend a millionth of a dollar to produce the same result. Because all of the energy required to light that light bulb has always already been in the wire and the bulb all along. We just don't make use of it. It helps if we had more wire and made a coil out of it and whatnot, threw in a few capacitors. But the point is, for the factor of efficiency. But the point is, you could theoretically use what you have and still get the same result, but without the battery. In theory, you'd need a very efficient circuit, and you might have to wait a while. It might take 1,000,000 seconds to light up the bulb. I've seen circuits, over-unity circuits, that are extremely not efficient, yet they still will amass enough reactive power that if that reactive power were to be converted into its equivalent real power, it would be enough to run an electric car, an electric race car, or more, a battleship if you prefer, an all-electric motorized battleship. It's just a question of efficiency, and when you don't have efficiency, then you have to make up the difference with time, duration. You have to be patient and wait a long time for the reactive power to build up, because it's lossless, so it has nowhere to go unless it meets up with resistance, and the portion of the reactive power that does not convert into real power through meeting up with resistance will simply build up and accumulate at an exponential rate. But you might have to wait a while. And when I would do simulations, if I ran a 1,000,000-second or 10,000,000-second duration simulation, then I could find out whether or not the circuit was actually over unity or not. And if it was, then I was already more than halfway to the goal, because now it was just a question of improving efficiency so that I don't have to wait that long, so I can get the same results in nanoseconds more often than not. It was hard to get it in between, Like my favorite is 100 milliseconds. It would usually either be 10 million seconds or a nanosecond, a billionth of a second, and very hard to get it in between. But be that as it may, the point is, we might have over-unity circuits underneath our nose and we don't even know it because we don't wait around to see the results, and we don't feed it a scanty amount of power, like a microvolt, to get that result. Instead, we're busy feeding it the full amount of energy that we think the load requires, plus extra to cover losses. So we never get to find out if the circuit in question might just be over unity if we're lucky. It may not be, probably, because it was never designed to be. It was designed to spend the battery, is what it was, so that the people who sell us the battery or sell us the energy to recharge the battery can make their income and pay their bills. But it has nothing to do with us and our quality of life. It has to do with their quality of life. Anyway, so the bully takes the credit, yet if we did not have a bully who basically is leverage, so that's basically a free energy circuit, because the bully is the leverage in which a small amount of energy produces a large result. He just trips you, and down you go, all your weight, 100 more or whatever pounds, and you hit the ground. While a flashlight circuit is so inefficient that it requires the hee-ho of a dozen people, like a tug-of-war, to be pushing the light bulb into a state of luminescence. I mean, it's so inefficient, it takes so much brute force to get the job done, while a bully does it just by tripping you. No energy at all. He just trips you and down you go. Gravity takes over. So that's literally the difference between a flashlight circuit and a free energy circuit, is the question between a tug-of-war of a dozen guys, big burly guys, versus a puny little bully. I bring this up for a very good reason, because when I was in elementary school, there was this bully who pushed me into the bushes, and he was a tyke by comparison to me. He was a shrimp, and he was several years younger. He was just a little kid. I was several years older than him and bigger. Yet he intimidated me enough to change my route and walk a bigger way around to get home in the afternoon, to bypass where he had staged his bully event. I never wanted to see him ever again in my life. I didn't want to deal with him because that was the kind of guy I was. I guess I was. I was a pushover. But it teaches me a lesson in leverage. When somebody can use so little force to trip you and cause you to fall, that's leverage. That's technology. That's not stupidity, and it's not brute force. Yet if you don't have intelligence, then brute force is all you have, and then you work and slave to pay your bills and wonder where all the money's going to, when a large part of these bills these days is based on energy, one way or another, directly or indirectly. Anyway, without getting too political here, so this is the difference. So the analogy that I enjoy now is one that I dreamed or revived from the dark dungeon of my memory cells in my brain, is that when water evaporates, it's actually boiling. But it boils at such a rate that we don't see it boiling. In other words, it's just a few molecules here and there scattered around that reach the point of changing into water vapor. Just like water does on the stove when we boil it. Except in that case, it's a lot, and we can see them. But when it evaporates, we cannot, because it's just a few molecules scattered about that are doing this. And so it takes a long time, for water to evaporate off the sidewalk, the concrete sidewalk. It takes a lot longer than if you were to boil it out of the kettle, because it's boiling at a slower rate, yet it is still boiling. The process is exactly the same. And this is what we do when we use our technology. We slowly destroy it. We know this. We eventually have to replace everything with brand new parts. Even though the electric circuit was not designed to be consumed, unlike gasoline in our motor vehicles, is designed to be consumed and made to go away out the exhaust tailpipe, and then we have to go fetch more gasoline. But when we run a circuit, the circuit itself does not get consumed, yet it does. It's just so minuscule, because we're dealing with improved efficiency here, that it does not get consumed right away. It just takes a very long time. In fact, so long that if we had not used the circuit, the wear and tear of just existence would probably wear it away at the same rate, no differently, because the amount of contribution that we contribute of wear and tear just by running the circuit probably doesn't amount to as much as just it sitting there. A battery just sits there and it loses its charge even if we don't use it. The ink in our cartridge for our printer, our computer printer, dries out whether or not we use it at the same rate, regardless of whether or not we use it. So we go and have to replace it whether or not we use it, whether or not we used it up to put it on paper. Well, it's kind of like that with circuits, except it's so slow we don't see it. Just like the evaporation, we don't see the boiling take place, but there it is. It's the only reason for the evaporation of the water is the water is boiling, but very few molecules are doing so, and so we don't see them. We'd need an electron microscope or something to see it happening. Yet it's happening nonetheless at an extremely slow rate, so we don't see it. We don't see bubbles coming to the surface. We don't have to, because it's not a violent process. It's a very casual process, and thus it seems like it's very innocent, like nothing's happening, when in reality we come back in an hour and the puddle will be gone. More or less. So maybe a few hours. Be that as it may. So this is what I'm trying to hint at when I describe what is happening, inasmuch as the reactive power is coming out of the valence shells of the electrons of the atoms that go to make up the materials of the construction of the circuit. All of the materials. The insulation on the wires, the dielectric sandwiched in between the two plates of all the capacitors. All the materials contribute their energy in giving it up. But normally we don't tell them they have to give it up because, in a sense, we don't, because we make up the difference by supplying it from a voltage source, let's say a battery pack in our electric cars. And so they'll still get worn out, yet they're not giving up their energy per se because we're making up the difference by giving it back to them. Well, what happens when we run a battery? The energy goes from one terminal, goes through the circuit, and comes back to the other terminal, neutralizing the difference of voltage between the two terminals of the battery, but it comes back to the source. So that ultimately the battery never gave up the energy. Well, the same thing happens in the circuit. It gives up in a free energy situation when the reactive power comes out of the valence electron shells holding all the atoms together. It leaves the circuit, goes to the load, and comes right back to the circuit. It doesn't go anywhere ultimately. Oh yeah, well, maybe some light or heat or mechanical motion came out of the appliance, the load that we're powering. But you know what? It goes to the environment and it comes right back from the environment back to the circuit. There's nowhere for the energy to go without it coming back to where it came from. That's what the law of karma means, is that the author of the karma, the person, is ultimately the source of where the karma comes back to. All of it. So now some of it comes back right away. Some of it, though, does not. It takes a circuitous route out into the environment and eventually it comes back. That's when shit happens, and we wonder why. Because we sent our karma out into the environment and it just took a long time to come back. Maybe several lifetimes, maybe thousands of years, but eventually it has to come back to the author. It has to. Or else find somebody else who gets tagged as its author. But it has to come back to someone, something or one serving as the starting point and the end goal, because it has to take a circular route. That doesn't mean we have to give it a circular route. Maybe we make it difficult to come back and we give it an open path that does not have a return path. And then it tries to fight its way back the same route it came, and that's when current reverses itself relative to the voltage that's pushing it along. Now it looks as if the voltage is sucking it, when of course it's not directly. But when you bounce a ball off of a board or a wall, you're playing racquetball with somebody, your force was in the direction of the wall, but now the ball's coming back at you. And what if you did it in such a way that the ball comes back at the same time that you apply the force to send it to the wall in the first place? That's what happens with triangular waves. They erupt everywhere at the same place simultaneously, so there's no flow anymore. The energy, the wave, appears everywhere at the same time, and the wave is spiky triangular waves in which the current and the voltage are offset by 180 degrees. So there's no flow anymore. There's no time lag anymore. And the ball is coming back at you just as easily as the force you're applying to send it away. Yet it's coming back because it has nowhere else to go, because you restricted. You played, I'm going to be a smart-ass outlaw. I'm not going to allow my karma to come back to me, so I'm going to make a singular path, a one-way path for the karma to go out and not come back. And you know what? It'll come back, but it'll come back instantaneously because you gave it no return route. So it now has to come back as a reversed orientation relative to the pressure you're applying to send it away. You've just created yourself a free energy situation in which the energy does not travel. It simply appears everywhere at the simultaneously as triangle waves. So the, you say, well, there's no justice in the world. Well, but you just created a free energy circuit right there, Mr. Outlaw, without even knowing that you were going to reap the benefit of free energy. You just did it. Instantaneous justice, instantaneous karma. So you see, there's no way you can get away from free energy, yet we've done a very good job of doing so. We don't teach karma anymore, let alone reincarnation or dharma. We don't connect the dots of things that we do know, like the evaporation of water versus the boiling of water. These things, we just don't think about it. We don't go there. But, it doesn't take too much effort to go there. Maybe it does. Maybe we're so brainwashed and hogtied to our programming, our mental programming. Maybe it is too hard to go there. Maybe we'd rather die than go there. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. It's been 6 years of labor for me, but I'm willing to go there. I don't mind because I don't have anything to lose because I don't have anything to lose. So I don't have to hold on and worry about a reputation to defend it when I don't have a reputation. I never did. So I don't have to worry about it. So I really have it easy by comparison to a lot of other people. I may be poor, but I don't have to defend the status quo. There's no room in my life for that. I've been doing this all my life. Maybe if I had taken a different route, the things would have been different, obviously, and I wouldn't be recording this. But I took the route I took half a century ago to defend my honor by not seeking wealth or career or whatnot. So I can safely train myself to deprogram myself from all the cultural brainwashing that I get along with everybody else gets from, the same school system and the media and everybody else, is 6 years of deprogramming, basically, of brainwashing or whatever they call it when they take you away from a cult. Our culture is like a cult because it gets us to believe creed and dogma without questioning it on faith. Take it on faith. Oh, you must believe, as if it's some kind of religious revival, a tent meeting. I thought it was called science, but it seems to have become politicized and evangelized. The Church of Belief. Oh, you got to believe in what we teach you in school. Oh, really? Not anymore, because I've seen the evidence so many times from simulators that engineers bank their life on before they go to the bench to try it out. And it's happened so thoroughly from so many different angles I've tried it. This is the value of my incessant obsession over, okay, that's nice, I did that free energy circuit, but I'm not going to sit pretty on it. I'm not even going to bother to build it. No, I got to design another one under simulation that's totally different, takes a different approach, different methodology, and boy, dang nabbit, it creates free energy regardless. So I have all these different viewpoints of perspective, and in which it's impossible for me to believe in what we've all been brainwashed to believe in. It's just not possible anymore. My understanding has too many multiplicity of points of view in which I don't have to defend a singularity anymore. I can take it any point of view desirable, and it's still going to end. I'm still going to reach the same conclusion. And that's what I've been doing all this time. And when I see the difference, because I've done plenty of circuit simulations that result in conventional outcomes, I discard them and move onward because I don't need those. But I've seen so many of them that I can see both points of view and why there is this struggle, ongoing struggle of misunderstanding. Because everybody's busy defending their point of view instead of trying to integrate all of it into one multi-scoped, multi-pointed view in which everybody gets to live harmoniously with everybody else, because you know it, if that's the way you want it, your point of view, that you get to have it. You've been having it all along. Why should you stop, right? So go ahead. Keep doing it. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't change just because I come along. I may not be worth it, I'm not holding a pot of gold for you to grab hold of, because you're not going to get that. If you go where I go, you're going to have what I have, poverty. So, and I think most people kind of get that sense without even having to think. They just kind of get this sneaky suspicion that, I don't know, he doesn't look wealthy. Why should I believe in him? Good, you're reasoning. It's good, you're thinking. But is that the way you measure success? Or do you measure success in terms of everybody getting to share in the goodies? And when everybody shares equally, nobody's wealthy, are they? Because you only have wealth if somebody else is poor. How can you count yourself wealthy if everybody is just as wealthy as you are? You can't. The whole definition of wealth is something in excess of normalcy. And poverty, something in diminishment of normalcy. But if everybody's normal, there's nobody poor and there's nobody wealthy. Oops. Some people can't have that. They got to have a hierarchy of society in which there's the haves, there's the have-nots, and there's the ones in between that are struggling. Why? You like that? Fine. Then that's the life you'll have. Me personally, I'd rather just share. And so that's what I do. I share the knowledge and expertise that I've managed to accumulate over the last 6 years. And maybe I can brag, that it's been relatively easy and a swift. It didn't take me more than a few weeks to get my first success. But of course, understanding I knew would take a lot longer, because that's the hard part. And even harder is to convince anyone. That's you. Whoa, boy, is that hard. Very depressing, too. But it was thrilling for me to learn, but it's depressing to teach other people. Anyway, I go at it anyway, because I got nothing else better to do. I'm still alive and breathing and kicking, so I'll keep trying. Anyway, I think I've said enough, and maybe you get the idea. If you don't, no problem. No harm done.